Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada. I might say a sweltering Ontario, Canada for a change, with episode number 132 of the Yakking Show. This is a show to awaken you to new perspectives for the changing world we're living in. And our guest today is somebody who's seen lots of changes, but not my job to steal Kathleen's thunder. First, let me introduce my co-host and quickly say to you, she wears another hat, and that is all things to do with IT and IT specialists. So if you've got problems in that area, get hold of her. So welcome, Kathleen. How are you doing today? Hot as well.
You're right. It's sweltering, Peter. Thank you for that intro. And thank you all so very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate you and we love reading your comments. So please keep those coming. And if anyone out there is interested in being a guest on our show, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Peter or myself. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. His name is Malcolm Teasdale. Malcolm, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. And thank you to you, Kathleen and Peter, for having me on the show today.
Now, Malcolm, you are a world traveler. You're an author. You're the host of the podcast titled Travel Addict Podcast. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your background and what led you to travel to, I think it is 90 countries?
Well, it's 105 now.
Oh,
Wow.
I stand corrected.
It's still bad enough, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I can give you a brief version of that if you wish. No, I was, I think like yourself, I was in the IT business for many, many years. And I started, you can tell I've got this Alabama accent. No, seriously, I'm from England and I'm born and raised in England. And then back in the 1980s, a company came to Britain and recruited me to move to Ottawa, Canada, which I moved there on January the 4th of that year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, brutal. Snow never left till May, but I did learn how to skate. But I joined another company I was in Canada who moved me back to the United Kingdom, where I stayed for another year. Then I moved over to another company transfer back to the United States into Florida. I've been here in well over 30 years now in the United States. And so I was always in the IT business, or telecommunications to be specific. But more recently, well, probably 20 years ago, I would say, I started a business with a partner of mine who actually lives in Ottawa. And we started this company and grew it. And it was a software development company. We grew it. We got worldwide presence, and then we sold it to a major corporation in 2013. Now, the reason I'm in this position today, I travel a lot. Yes, I do, and I love traveling. Is because I always used to travel a lot for business. I had to, obviously, in the latter years internationally. But when you travel on business, you don't really get to see a lot of the cultures of foreign lands. You go to the big cities, the business hubs, etc. But after taking early retirement back in 2013, I wanted to do more of the travel to off the beaten path locations, more obscure stuff, to learn more about the culture of foreign lands. And that's what I've been doing basically ever since, apart from last year, of course. So right. I think, yeah, so that's really it.
Wow. So I got to ask you, you made one huge leap. That was from burying telephone cables, according to your words, and climbing up telephone poles, which is a sort of probably an obsolete profession right now. But you made a big jump into management in that first, I think the first company you worked for. So what precipitated that? How did you make that jump? Because that's a leap.
From, well, to my very first job, actually. And my very first job was really a disc jockey, believe it or not. But in the professional world, then I joined the Telecoms Corporation in Britain, who employed me. But they started me on an apprenticeship. I had to learn virtually everything about telecommunications.
Okay.
So that meant digging holes, climbing telegraph poles, running cables to people's houses so they can use a rotary dial phone.
Right.
And that's pretty much it. So you're probably thinking, well, this guy he's old. Well, yeah, I'm probably old because, you know, it's absolutely
join the club.
Yeah. So
I've got to throw something in. I was on a farm in Rhodesia. We didn't even have a rotary dial phone. We had one with a handle that you wound up and spoke to the operator. So I'm old too.
I remember those as well.
Yeah.
I want to say a bit before my time, but I don't think it was much before my time.
So were you on a management track, starting at the bottom as an apprentice on the trade side, or how did you make that transition from working
No,
with your hands
it wasn't
to
that.
management?
It was more birth by fire, because I'm an engineer by trade.
Okay.
So eventually I got into management. The last company I worked for was in the United States, but they have offices worldwide. So I got into a management position there, and I ran the technical support organization for the company out of Florida. And it was that time where I discussed with my work colleague, said, we think we can do our own thing and develop a product that is better, leverages technology that's around today and make it better than what our existing company had to offer at that time. Small part of their product portfolio, but we felt it was important. And that's the reason we started this thing going. We had this idea, and then it grew from then.
Yeah, right. I think it's really interesting for young people who have to, sorry, Kathleen, I'm jumping over your question, but while we got Malcolm on the subject, for young people who might be watching the show, who are concerned that because they're doing a relatively low-level job, say, for instance, the modern equivalent of burying cables, that their future is doomed. But you're living proof that it's not, right? So I think that's really encouraging for young people.
Yeah, I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't really think of it at that time. It was, I was going to be trained to become sort of in an engineering capacity, but the Telecoms Corporation of Britain at the time basically maybe you got to learn everything about our business, and you got to start off with what all the guys on the street do, learn every facet of the industry.
Right.
I knew ultimately it was not what I was brought on to become.
Sure.
I had no problem going through that process, and that was it. And of course, they sent me to college for 5 years as well, which was worth it. I knew what I was getting into, but my ultimate goal, I wasn't thinking about one day I'm going to have my own business at that time. No.
Good. Kathleen, over to you. Sorry.
So being, of course, in software development, I have to ask you, what motivated you to start a software development company back in 1998?
It was because our existing company had a product that was leveraging old, or I would say dated operating software. Think Microsoft. And so what we wanted to do was leverage the latest operating system that Microsoft had at the time and build what we thought it was management information software, and leverage that technology, in which we did. Okay. And it was used in companies that I would say if you know what the term call center means, then you'd probably understand what it was used for. Managing call processing, providing information about, well, how many calls did we lose today? How much business did we make? And how long did it take people to answer the darn phone? Things like that. But it was more in depth than that. And that's what we started. And we grew the business throughout North America, where we felt comfortable. And that time, after that, we decided to spread our wings and go into the international market, which then we were faced with translating our product into other foreign languages.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah.
Wow, quite something. So would you say that traveling was necessitated by the business, or was it something you found in one of your first exotic locations, Papua New Guinea, that got you the sort of permanent travel bug?
Funny you should say that. Now, actually, when the company I mentioned who transferred me back to the UK back in the early 80s, I enjoyed my job there, but I had an opportunity to work for the Telecoms Corporation in Papua New Guinea. And I was all set to go. In fact, I handed in my notice, and I was going to take a few months to travel out there, going through the South Pacific, until my company at the time decided, well, Malcolm, we're not sure that you're happy where you live right now, but why don't you consider a move to Boca Raton, Florida?
Okay, right.
Okay. So I thought about that, and that's how I made the move. And I moved over to the United States back in the middle 80s. And that's why I'm still here today, you know.
Ah, right. Okay,
Just
but you did
started.
get to Papua New Guinea, didn't you?
I'd never been there.
Oh, you haven't been there.
Close.
Okay.
Oh no, I had my work permit. I had stamp. I was ready to go.
Oh, I
Within
see.
1 month of leaving, I was offered a transfer to the States, and I said,
And that's
"I'll
it.
take that."
Okay.
I'd already sold my house, and they said, "Oh, well, come on over."
Uh,
Well, since you're so well traveled, we have to hear about some of the highlights of those travels.
Okay, I better be careful what I say here.
No, just
Actually,
absolutely not. Just go for it.
actually, one of the it's a case depending what you call a highlight, scenes of beauty, rich cultural places, and places that were a bit edgy. I was fortunate to be able to go to a couple of places. One, when I was employed by my previous company, I was asked to go to the Cairo, Egypt during the first Gulf crisis, if you remember that, to fix telecommunications problems there in the US Embassy's largest embassy in the Middle East. And no one would go because of the situation at the time.
Yeah.
I just started managing up technical support. So I thought, well, it's my responsibility, I'll go. So I did that. And I was there for about a week and a half and to fix things up. But after that, I did leave that company and started things on my own. But one thing that really sticks with me is this trip back in 1990. If you know what was going on then with the Soviet Union, it was in the middle of breaking up. And I went there in December, and it was the final days of the Soviet Union's existence. And I went there to the US Embassy, and I wasn't even a US citizen. I still had my British passport. I wasn't even a US citizen at that time. So of course they said, "What? We're getting a British guy coming over to the US Embassy in Moscow during the breakup of the Soviet Union? This does not make any sense." So I had to show my passport several times around the embassy. But I was there during that time, and I left the day before Mikhail Gorbachev lost power.
Right.
But I saw all the goings on in the city, what was going on. It was unbelievable times there. So I do remember that sort of thing sticks with me. But as far as adventure, I mean, I've trekked the Himalayas, and I've gone camping in the Mongolian wilderness, and climbed up the tiger's nest in Bhutan. These things, adventurous stuff, I've really enjoyed doing since I retired from, the general workplace, so to speak, which, to me, these are things that will stay with me for the rest of my life. I'll always remember those things, Yeah. So just a couple for you.
Yeah, very good. And so people who haven't traveled a lot, and a lot of our audience, I know, probably haven't been out of North America. If they were, when all this nonsense with traveling comes to an end, which we hope it will soon, about the virus, when things are somewhat normal and somebody wanted to go to an exotic but relaxing place, what would you suggest for a North American?
Well, the Caribbean is always fun. I've been away a couple of times this year. I've been fully vaccinated, and I've been to the Turks and Caicos Islands, which is a beautiful beach. But going down to the Caribbean is a lot of fun. I live on a beach, right? So going down the Caribbean is a different culture down there. So I enjoy that. But people where I live, it's very, very busy right now. It's tourist season. This place is jam-packed, which makes me want to leave town to get away from the tourists and go to other places.
Yeah.
People come here. Now, I get that. Beautiful beach here. And, we can always go to the beach with friends and family, hang out on the beach, drink a beer, and go home, have a good time. And we remember that to a certain extent, but it's the more adventurous stuff I would sort of not persuade, but advise people to do. Something that, if they have a bucket list, overused term, but if they've got something that's in the back of the mind that's sort of adventurous, then make plans to do it. Don't sit back and regret it later on in years to come when you had an opportunity, because sooner or later, we'll get to the point where we can't travel anymore or can't do this stuff we want to do. And so I'm doing it now before I become decrepit. And so that's what I'm doing. I've got more stuff I want to do, and I keep doing it. Suffice to say, I'm a travel addict. That's the way it is.
You're absolutely right. I did a spell in management in a big corporation, flying 5-star hotels, flying 2 or 3 times a week, and then traveled a lot when I had my own business, mainly almost exclusively in Africa. But this show is not about me. The point I'm trying to make is that I also walked part of the Camino de Santiago in 2019, the Portuguese route. And to me, I had in that 12 days walking 250 kilometers, I had more memorable occasions and more things that'll stay with me than all the other traveling I've done in my life. It was such a lovely experience, So I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I was going to go to Namibia this year in Africa to go in the desert there. I'm putting that off till next year.
Yeah.
So I've got things I want to do. I can't do them all, but the trip you mentioned, of course, exciting, and that's things you'll remember forever.
Oh, for sure. I've been to Namibia. It's lovely, and I see you've been to the Victoria Falls, which was my old stamping ground of Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. So that's quite a spectacle for people who haven't been there, isn't it?
Yes. I went there. You mentioned Rhodesia, and my father was stationed there for a period of time during World War II.
Right.
Yeah, when it was Rhodesia.
Yeah, that's right.
And he was right by the Victoria Falls there. So I had a chance to go to South Africa. It was for a trade show. It was in Sun City in South Africa.
Yeah.
After that finished, I decided to take a flight up to Zambia.
Yeah.
And I stayed at the Royal Livingston Hotel and walked to the Victoria Falls from there and over to Zimbabwe. It's fantastic,
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Kathleen, I'm monopolizing Malcolm here.
No, not at all. I'm enjoying this. And in fact, if you're anything like me, I've been to Ireland a few times, and I've fallen in love with Ireland and the people and the landscape. And I love going on long hikes off the beaten path in the middle of nowhere. For me, that's my escape. But anyways, I
agree with you.
It's not, the show is not about me. So let's switch gears a little bit. You need to tell us about your books and your podcast.
The reason, let's go back to the books. I've written 5 books, and they started off being sort of business oriented. I thought I need to log some of this stuff. My mother gave me the idea many, many years ago because I was traveling a lot. She never understood why, but she said, "Malcolm, why don't you write a book?" And I said, "Why?" And she said, "So you can remember stuff later on in life." Okay. And that sort of stuck with me. I started to go into these weird and wonderful places. I thought, yeah, I can jot these things down. And when I'm lying on my deathbed there and, they want to cut me off from life, I may be able to read my book and say, did I do that? Who is that guy? I don't know what I would think. But there were things I could read back on. I said, I actually did that. But it was business travel. Nothing formal here. It's just experience of going to foreign lands, trying to conduct business with different business cultures, if you wish, because it's sometimes weird. And so then it got more into adventure travel that later on, so it was a total of 5 books. But as far as the podcast, the Travel Addict podcast, this all came about because of what happened last year. I was used to getting out of town a lot, but I couldn't. I had to do something. And I read a bit about podcasts. I thought, well, I may be able to do that. So I just did it for a hobby. And that's it. I've, been a guest on a few shares. I started one myself, and that's what happens. I don't take it too seriously, but that's what it is, really. That's why it's called the Travel Addict.
Travel Addict. Very, very good. Very good. I got something I want to ask you, but I've got to pick up on the photograph behind you. Are you a diver as well then?
Yeah, I'm an avid scuba diver. Yeah, that picture behind me was, where was that? Oh, that was down in the Turks and Caicos Islands, I think. Yeah.
Nice. I got to ask you, have you ever got to the Comores? I had a look at your list of countries. I didn't see it. Mayotte and the Comores Islands, just north of Madagascar.
No, I hadn't been there. The nearest I was going to get down that neck of the world was to Zanzibar.
Okay, yep.
And I didn't make it because I had to delay my trip for a reason. Then it became out of season. So no, I haven't been down there yet. I was due to go to next month, actually, and I had to call this off because you can't get in Indonesia right now. The island of Raja Ampat, or that little area of Raja Ampat, which is a massive nature preserve, is supposed to be beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was going to go there. I was all set to go, I had my accommodation booked. It wasn't easy to get there, but Indonesia just locked down. So that went by the wayside, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was really lucky to get to the Comores and Mayotte. Went to Grand Comore and Anjouan, I think it was, way back in the early 80s before it got commercialized. And the water, it's the clearest water I've ever seen in my life. There's two lagoons. Some
beautiful spots around the world. I tell you, Palau, if you ever get there, is unbelievable.
Yeah, and you know, the one night it was brilliant moonlight, and I was standing outside this tiny little decrepit hotel, looking down on the water, and I could see the fish swimming in the moonlight. It's that clear, you know.
Beautiful, isn't it?
That's a good one. If for a diver, that must be incredible.
Yeah.
So here's my burning question. You, based on your experience of traveling to 105 countries and meeting people from all over the world, and you've obviously met way more people than the average person meets, what do you think the secrets are for a well-balanced and happy life from all your travels?
For me, I learn something new every day. And if I have a saying, it is my quest to learn how the rest of the world works. Okay. I live in America, and, you know, I've enjoyed living here, but there's a lot of beautiful places in the world I like to discover. And I love meeting people from foreign lands and learning how they live. Yeah, and believe it or not, people can live in a whole mountain village up in the Himalayas, but you know what? They wouldn't live anywhere else because they're really happy living there.
Yeah.
Good to find out why. So that is it. I enjoy learning or becoming educated about going to all of these places, and I enjoy telling people about it. I do lecturing on cruise ships as well.
I saw that.
Yeah, I do. I went on the first one just in June. There, it's one of the large cruise ships who set sail in the Caribbean. It's the first time back at sea for a long time. So they invited me on board to do a few lectures there on foreign lands and stuff. So that was very nice. So that's it. It's my quest to learn how the rest of the world works.
And I get, you know, I found the same in Africa with people with nothing who are way happier than the average North American, let me tell you. So a lot of what you picked up there, valuable lessons for life, right, from these people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's obviously we have to come to the realization that there's some countries in the world that just do things a little bit better than we do here at home, you know, and we need to realize that. So if everyone sort of talked to each other, he said, I know you do a good job of this, tell me how you do it, or had that conversation taking place between all the nations in the world, we'd probably be a lot better place, wouldn't we?
I agree with you. And another important lesson I learned, in many places of the world, people do things a lot slower than we do, and you just got to get used to it. You know, that's the way it is.
The Caribbean, man. Caribbean, yes.
Africa
Island
too.
time.
Yes.
So I know Kathleen's going to ask you a question, but I've got something else that's just come up. Quick, I've got a quick one, Kathleen.
Sure.
You've talked to some of the highlights and some of the fantastic places. Other than Russia, have you had any really scary moments?
Russia wasn't scary, by the way. It wasn't scary. It was edgy, and the Bolshoi Theatre was still open. I had a wonderful time there. I even bumped into the rock band, the Scorpions, staying in my hotel, which was fabulous. Scary experiences. I've had a couple of near misses. I was in Bali. I left Bali 24 hours before they bombed the place. Remember that in 2000?
Yeah.
I was in Nepal, in the mountains there, just a couple of months before they had the big earthquake there. And knowing where that was, I would have been wiped out. But the only worrisome time I've had is taxes. Is being kidnapped. And, you know, it's always these young foreign land. And I've been to Colombia a couple of times on business. And that was rife there, being kidnapped. And, you know, whoever's kidnapping you said, tell me your office, I'm going to get a ransom. So I told my business partner that, I said, look, I'm going to Colombia. If I get kidnapped, they're going to ask for a ransom. and he said, okay, I understand, Malcolm, I'll go up to $100. I kid you not. It's Canadian humor, by the way. You might get that, but okay, fair enough then. I still went.
So Malcolm, how do people contact you, find your podcast, or buy your books?
The best way to discover more about me is actually my website, malcolmjteasdale.com. So you've got a copy of that link. On there is just, I've got pictures, videos, presentations, subject details about books with the chapter titles, a bit about podcast, and personal opinions about places around the world, like the best of, the worst of, the edgiest, things like that people might want to know about. So it's full of information there. And, the books are sold at various places, like Amazon or whatever. But my suggestion is for people who are interested, go on my website, read about the books and or the chapters. And the titles are a bit weird, by the way, but that's all right because the storyline is it could be quirky would be the best word for it, but factual, educational, quirky. That's what I say. But it's true life incidences on traveling around the world. Yes.
Excellent.
And I don't know, I have one extra little question, and I know Peter asked you about your favorite places, but is there one particular country that just stands out in your mind as a place that you wouldn't have any problem going back time after time? Is there one in particular? I already mentioned mine.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Kathleen, there's two things, there's two answers to that question.
Mm-hmm.
There's a country that I would want to go back to again, because it was so delightful. That's the country of Bhutan, which is a landlocked country in the Himalayas. And the civilization there hasn't really moved forward in centuries. It's starting to, but people are so happy there. There's no crime. They're just content with the way they are living. And I understand that. Okay. I'd always wanted to go back there, and that's where Tiger's Nest Monastery is, by the way, up there, situated on the face of a cliff. You can hike up there or climb up there. And I've always wanted to do that again. Will I go back there time and time again? No, there's no need, but I would like to at least go back there once. I typically love Asia as a continent. I've been going back there at least once a year. And so, yeah, that whole continent, especially Southeast Asia, I really like. And again, I was going there this year, but I can't. It's pretty well locked down. So those are probably the two. Asia, I'd keep on going back there. Fabulous hotels, fabulous people, culturally rich, and very safe. And so that would be up there as one of my favorites.
Very good. I've got an extra question. We've got literally a minute left. I mentioned I did the Camino, and there was lots of women hiking on their own. And one of the questions coming from Africa, I said, "Have you had any bad experiences?" And of all the ones I spoke to, said, "No, not at all. We've been absolutely fine. No safety issues." One woman had cycled from Holland and camped in a tent in farmers' fields, and she said, "No problem whatsoever." But I know other parts of the world are not quite so friendly for women travelers. Is there any particular things that women in our audience who are thinking of traveling overseas should look out for?
I've spoken to a lot of women that have traveled solo, and they've enjoyed their experience, especially traveling solo. It's amazing what the ladies I met would do. They're pretty brave, some of them.
Oh, yeah.
And hitchhiking is something I probably wouldn't do in a trouble area. But what I always do, and I recommend not just for ladies, but anyone who travels to a country, is that do your homework before you go. Look on the government websites, not just one. I could look at the US State Department, travel.state.gov, but I also look on the Canadian one. I look on the British one, because they can have a habit of instilling fear, but also have a tendency to exaggerate. I was in St. Petersburg, Russia, just 3 years ago, and I spent a night or two out there. if I took notice that the US Embassy or the travel.state.gov for the US, they said basically don't go there.
Right.
Do not go there. The consulate had closed down. Then I read the Canadian version of it and the British one said, yeah, it's perfectly safe. All these people go here every year. So I
Right.
went out perfect. There was nothing wrong with it at all. So don't just look at one source of information, look at a few and then make an educated opinion. But hitchhiking is safe, and there's bad areas in every city of the world.
Sure.
So be careful. Just learn about the place you're going to first. I would.
Great.
Great
Good
advice.
advice. Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Malcolm.
And I think we're out of time for today, but
Mhm.
Malcolm, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on our show today. Thank you very, very much. And
Oh,
thank you
thank you.
all so very much for tuning in. And once again, we love reading your comments, so please keep those coming. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Peter or myself. And until next time, bye-bye, everyone.
Goodbye.